Dr. Henry Loomis, this is Zora Bennett, our mission specialist.
Sorry, what mission?
A year ago, the world was blessed with another Jurassic Park movie. Sorry, Jurassic World movie called Jurassic World Rebirth. The official trailer presented an action-adventure thriller instead of the traditional sci-fi horror that was the first movie and the original novel, but I held on to hope that maybe this would be the beginning of a course correction back to the heart of Jurassic. Maybe Rebirth would not be a movie catering to younger audiences, but doubling down on the more terrifying aspects presented in the trailer, where the main antagonists are dinosaurs, the human mind versus Stone Age intelligence, modern warfare against sheer savagery, the classical man versus beast, a return to the core fundamental block that made Jurassic so good, an innate human fear of a carnivorous animal. We all love watching lions in the zoo, but no one wants to meet one outside of a cage. Unfortunately, this wasn't that type of movie. I'm not even sure whether the writers behind Rebirth were even aware of the exact genre they were supposed to be writing, creating a Frankenstein amalgamation of a family-friendly adventure, a mission heist movie, a serious horror, or a thriller comedy. Jurassic World Rebirth is a terrible addition to the franchise. It's not even a good standalone movie, or a fun bad movie. My brain cells were melting during the entire runtime, and my boredom was almost indescribable. So why am I bringing up this movie nearly a whole year after release? Well, you might have already noticed, but my channel hasn't been up for very long. Although, the most important reason is reflecting on a bad movie includes a bias. When you walk into a theater with a preconceived idea about that movie, you'll be disappointed regardless of how bad or good that movie actually is. Letting the movie rest and the community opinion move on to the next piece of slop grants me the opportunity to have a less biased viewing. Spoiler alert, the movie still stinks. The second smaller but no less important reason is because 1 year ago, a certain someone who watches these had the audacity, let me repeat, the audacity, to tell me that not only did Martin Krebs attempt to kill Teresa during the boat scene, but that Rebirth was a good movie. I'm the type of person who thinks people should like whatever they want to like. A few of my personal favorite movies, TV shows, and video games are considered bottom of the barrel, but I still love them. My main problem is when someone looks me dead in the eye and claims that something is good, when it's clear the writers don't care about the legacy of the IP, and the producers clearly only care about doing the bare minimum for maximum profit. Now, I'm in a situation where I'm obligated to prove you wrong. You know who you are, we both know you're going to watch this, the story sucks, the characters make no sense, this is a bad movie, my mind shall not be changed. Before we begin ripping this film apart like Robert Muldoon in Jurassic Park, minor things must be hashed out. I'm going to try and avoid discussing any weaker links in the acting chain. Any film can be unfortunately cursed by a poor performance or two, and there are more compelling arguments for why Rebirth is a bad movie. Abysmal CGI will also be overlooked, except for a few scenes that directly influence the continuity of the story. Nor will we cover the awful camera work that has this film looking like a direct DVD release. My focus is the characters, their motivations, key plot points and arcs, the main story, the writing, and the Frankenstein for genres. This is going to be a long one, so strap in folks, we're headed back to another island. The movie opens with 17 years earlier. The captions fade to a troop of Capuchins watching a helicopter, and we switch to follow it, spotting a man-made dam and buildings nestled in tropical settings. Captions state that this is Isle St. Hubert. We cut inside a building to security camera feeds and displays of DNA strands, the word cross-species prominently displayed on one of the screens. Between an announcement and nearby signage, we are told that this is Security Level 5 within an InGen-owned building. The level holds a laboratory researching and developing DNA sequencing for dinosaurs with people in white hazmat suits studying various specimens. I don't mind the beginning of the opening. The camera does a nice, slow 360 spin, allowing audiences to absorb the bored and tired body language of the scientists, and includes a little fun foreshadowing scene with a mutating raptor specimen twitching in a container. It's a clear reference to the opening scene of the original Jurassic Park, and both movies do a good job of making the place feel real, so kudos to the filmmakers for putting in extra effort and cost to nail down that authentic feeling.
Alright, hold on. Okay, yeah. 3, 2, 1.
This is the first instance that had me a bit perplexed. I presume the movie was showing the two keys because it would be a plot device later on, where the main characters would get trapped within the lab and require both keys to escape. Second spoiler, the keys don't make a reappearance, they're nothing. On the surface, the concept of dual control lock is cool, but it leaves behind many questions. If one person must be on the other side at all times to open the door, does that mean there must always be someone waiting around? Does that imply a shift rotation, including a night shift, where some unfortunate worker spends the entire night there merely to open the door in the morning? Is it ever possible to open the door without another person inside, because that seems like a major security oversight? These are all minor nitpicks, but these small issues make Rebirth so frustrating because it makes it abundantly clear none of the writers were thinking or caring about the larger implications. You know who, yes, talking to you, will probably say, oh, but it's just a movie. Shut your brain off and enjoy it. And my response to that is, that's stupid. How can my brain shut off when the movie is constantly reminding me it is a movie, especially in the sci-fi genre where traditionally audience expect a certain level of grounding logic. The right way of handling a dual control lock is showing audiences that the first door is kept open until someone enters for decontamination. Then the door is locked using the two keys, one person on each side, and the audience naturally picks up on the logical conclusion that reopening the doors will require both keys. Another poor plot device is the reason behind the eventual containment failure. In Jurassic Park, the opening scene has a worker being attacked by a raptor following a containment failure. The main mechanism behind that failure is an unexpected display of strength from the raptor, highlighting both the sudden and swift threat a dinosaur presents, and the failure of mankind's modern creations to control the creature. In Rebirth, the writers' attempts at replicating that scene fails because they miss the key points from the original, which is demonstrating the danger of a dinosaur. The scientist spits out a candy wrapper, the candy wrapper is sucked into the door, and the wrapper manages to not only break the entire containment center, but also affects other nearby rooms? As someone familiar with security systems, specifically revolving network security, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, the lab is shown to have high security. I doubt this scientist would be allowed to spit the wrapper onto the floor without getting an earful from somewhere nearby. And why is food even allowed this close to the decontamination area? I'm not a biologist, but one would think this would be marked as an automatic no food, no drink zone. Giving the writers some credit, I could see the movie alluding to a universal fact that human beings will naturally relax and forego certain rules when not experiencing immediate repercussions. A person driving on a back road going 20 miles over the speed limit has probably been doing that for years, but all it takes is one dark night and a startled deer, and then that person will be telling everyone at the hospital, but I do it all the time and never had an issue before. That aspect of human nature can work, but the scene still fails at capturing the most valuable aspect of Jurassic, the extreme violence and unpredictable nature of dinosaurs.
Alert. Containment failure.
Keep this in mind, the door is sealed in this shot. This will be important later. Containment breaks and evacuation is ordered. Multiple scientists flee from that back room, solidifying the idea there is another room before the actual container holding the mutated dinosaur, and here in this shot, we see that the door that was sealed shut is now wide open. At first I assumed these were separate rooms, but after reviewing the footage, this is the same area because the fleeing people must push open the door stuck midway. This means the sealed dual-controlled locked door is suddenly open, breaking a rule established moments ago solely that it can begin to slowly close and trap a scientist.
Go! 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 The door! Oh god! Oh god! Oh no!
There are a bundle of problems I have with this opening scene, and I think the best way to illustrate them is a side-by-side comparison with the original.
Just please open the door. Sorry. Please open the door for me!
For context, Jurassic Park's opening is 2 minutes and 41 seconds. The scene shows the location, vehicles, and a crowd of workers before jumping into the main incident a little over a minute into the opening. And the length of the attack scene is 44 seconds. Rebirth's opening is 4 minutes and 7 seconds. It also shows the location in the lab for about 3 minutes in total, and the actual attack does not occur until the last 15 seconds. Time is not an issue if the opening was good. but 3 solid minutes are spent meandering around to ensure the audience knows that this is a lab and those are mutants. See, that says InGen, you know, from the other movies. See that? That's a picture of DNA strands. There's the word cross-species. Look at that weird thing in the tank. Look at all the lab equipment. Do you get it? Do you understand? 3 minutes is spent establishing something that can be done in 30 seconds. While the opening might be slow, I do appreciate the lighting. The sudden contrast between bright, sterile, and white lab lighting to complete darkness broken by flashing red warning lights and glowing computers does the groundwork for a spooky atmosphere. Setting aside dual control locks and candy wrappers, if the movie nailed the first kill, audiences might feel satisfied, but the writers dropped the ball committing a cardinal sin, revealing the monster. Monster movies make a common mistake of revealing the monster early on. By showing the audience their trump card right from the bat, fear levels drop some without the mystery. Not seeing the monster is usually more scary than seeing it head on. Jurassic Park avoided this sin with flashes of a creature bathed in shadows and a slit eye, while screaming workers attempt to save a fallen man. This is when quick cuts work in your favor, making a scene feel more chaotic and hiding your monster's true form from the audience. Rebirth had the cheat code at their fingertips with dim lighting and hazy steam. All they had to do was not show the mutated dino and make the kill either quick or barely visible. Even though Jurassic Park's attack scene is nearly 3 times as long as Rebirth, it feels like Rebirth's attack scene is much longer because there's no tension. The editing style of the original, quick flashes, lack of light, and the desperation from the workers makes the original feel impactful and tense. Compare that to Rebirth. I know this guy is cooked. I'm seeing the monster without any subtlety or mystery, and the movie already told me this was 17 years ago, so none of this matters to me because the fate of the characters was decided the moment my eyes saw those captions. Here's what I think the opening scene should have been. Open to the jungle. A burbling creek, buzzing flies, and leaves dripping dew before we see the monkey. The animals are startled from a shadow passing overhead with a loud whirring noise, and the disturbance is revealed to be a helicopter flying around the islands and heading towards a base. We cut to the male scientist. We follow him down a hallway walking past other rooms. From a brief glimpse, we can see the various labs and specimens before the male scientist passes signage on the wall telling us where we are. The scientist reaches his destination and heads for the open door. A guard joins him inside the decontamination room. The camera cuts behind a female scientist standing from her desk to initiate the sealing of the door, giving us our first glimpse of the dual control lock. We cut a distance behind them, back at her desk as decontamination is occurring in a blurry background, and watch her computer display a warning symbol. The female scientist returns to her desk and notices the warning, asking someone a question. Other scientists snap out of their intense concentration right before the room goes dark. Red lights flash and sirens blare. Scientists are suddenly piling the decontamination room, pounding on the glass. Guards begin shouting orders while the female scientist has her key ready, looking for the male scientist. We get an overhead shot of the male scientist pushing through a crowd of people in a room filled with steam and darkness pierced by flashing red. He finally reaches the front and sticks his key into the lock. They do the countdown and twist, except this time, the door does not open. They do it again, panic rises, but a loud thud hushes the crowd. There is but a moment of silence before chaos erupts. The female scientist and others are attempting to override the emergency security system that has locked down the doors, while those trapped suddenly begin disappearing into the fog, snatched by something unseen, and panic intensifies. People begin pushing and trampling others to reach the front, and the male scientist is knocked onto the ground. He places a hand on the door, and the female scientist places her hand on top of his, their touch separated by a sheet of glass, tears streaming down her face and blood pouring from a cut on his forehead. The camera zooms back behind her in the gathering crowd, watching a slaughter happen. There is the briefest outline of a jaw with another flash of red, some creature towering before the door, and the man and remaining survivors are grabbed by a single hand, their screams silenced in the smog. Cut to title screen. By removing the 17 years ago, audiences feel the characters matter, and removing a nonsensical candy wrapper, that's just better writing. Audiences don't need to be spoon-fed the reason behind a containment breach, the laboratory's exact work, nor the mutated dinosaur. Now, theaters can ponder about the escape and the monster, creating a worse image in their head. The concept of mutations and cross-species is brought up multiple times later in the film, so putting it here is a bit redundant. Adding a trapped crowd, plus another group attempting to help, adds a level of conflict that draws in the viewer. Modifying the dual control lock sequence makes the scene more tense during the brief search for the second key and the male scientist, plus counting down until he reaches the front and turns it has our stomachs dropping once we realize the door is not opening. By shortening the time of the open and not holding the audience's hand by going look at that, see it again, see it even again, builds a more harrowing and mysterious atmosphere. In literally the exact next scene, InGen's work with mutated dinosaurs is explained, and once learning that, audiences will get excited with the idea of not only a large dinosaur, but a very deadly, possibly insanely smart, mutated abomination that just ripped through a sea of people. These captions are an example of the biggest issue with the movie: constant repeating of information. The runtime for this movie ends up being needlessly long because the same information is consistently thrown at the viewer, and these captions are made redundant because the movie tells us and shows us again and again in the future.
Be the last surviving sauropod in North America.
Being a brachiosaur, known to be in poor health.
They're all dead or dying, so...
Except for on a few islands around the equator.
Just have the characters tell us. Even better, have them show us. Because the movie has the worst habit of showing followed by also telling moments later. Or remove the scenes of the characters telling us things we already know. Have the captions tell us and let audiences assume the characters already know this information because it's part of the rules for the world they live within.
Now just imagine, take somebody you know, anybody, and imagine that you could be the one to give them an extra 20 years of life.
That's very touching. It's not my field.
And we have very deep pockets.
The next scene is a conversation between Zora Bennett and Martin Krebs. Once again, through visuals and the radio and the characters conversing, we learn the world has moved beyond the excitement of dinosaurs. I think that idea is a little silly, given people still get excited about visiting zoos to see animals that have existed for hundreds of years, but I understand what the movie is going for and I'm willing to let that slide. Martin Krebs works for Parkergenix, a pharmaceutical company. Parkergenix wants to hire Zora Bennett, and Krebs explains the company is close to a breakthrough, but requires genetic information from a few select dinosaur breeds before they make it. I like this scene for the most part. There's an interesting and colorful start. Vibrant colors aren't seen as much in movies, but kudos where kudos are due. Rebirth has colors popping from the screen. Krebs and Bennett are stuck in traffic due to an escaped sauropod, and the surroundings are fun to watch. The conversation, not so much. Their talk feels a bit bloated and dragged on, but the transition from car to waterfront is nice. Character introductory scenes are important. Audiences will make up their mind about a character generally within the first few minutes of meeting them. Krebs' attempts at persuading Bennett fails with an emotional argument of helping sick people, before winning her over with the logical argument of dollar signs. This tells the audience that Bennett is a character valuing profit over morality while placing Krebs in a bit of a morally gray area. Yes, he wants the medicine to help people, but he's also representative of Parkergenix, and the money gained from this breakthrough is attractive. This is important to their character arcs, or lack of arcs really. Krebs is one note, while Bennett does a complete 180 that makes no sense. For some reason, films and TV shows since my childhood have represented fame and wealth as a negative. How many Disney or Nickelodeon shows have a character berated or treated as wrong for wanting to move up in life and join the big leagues? Sometimes, to achieve our dreams, that means moving away. But it's always treated as abandoning friends and family in those types of shows. Wanting wealth is not an inherent evil. Earning money through sacrificing morals and taking advantage of vulnerable people, that's morally wrong, which means it's not the money, but the action of the person that is the true evil. I despise the tropes of old rich person or person wanting money bad. Money is how you eat. Money puts a roof over your head. Money is a bartering currency for the things you want, and you have every right to work as hard as you can to reach a comfortable place where you have the things in the life you desire. The writers want audiences to assume Martin Krebs is evil solely because money bad, which is a huge blunder because anyone over the age of 8 understands that's a logical fallacy. There's a normal guy with a good job at a large company that does come across slightly pathetic and cowardly, but in what way is that outrightly evil? This scene also firmly puts Bennett's character into a specific box of profit over altruism. If Bennett is our protagonist, the writers should have switched the scene around. Krebs should have offered money, been refused, and tried the emotional argument exposing where his priorities lie while showing Bennett's softer side. I don't know who wrote this scene, and I don't really want to know. I'm not even angry. I'm just disappointed because that was such a basic and easy win and yet was somehow missed by an entire writing room. And I know that there's the argument that Bennett is supposed to change over time. The only problem is that there is no change or gradual shift. The difference in her character is so jarring and one note that it almost feels like Bennett is actually being super manipulative. But that's for later on. Back to the movie.
Good morning, Doctor. Sorry to drop in unannounced.
Our next character is Dr. Henry Loomis. He is a paleontologist working in a museum that is clearly struggling with dinosaur exhibits being removed and taken down. Dr. Loomis has been advising Parkergenix on paleo coronary health and that research has helped them develop a drug that could potentially forestall coronary disease by an average of 2 decades. Coronary diseases refer to plaque buildup in the arteries, which, as you can guess, is a big no-no. Coronary diseases account for 1 every 4 deaths a year according to some statistical models and is considered the leading cause of death on a global scale. If Krebs is right about this drug, that would revolutionize modern medicine. which sets the stakes pretty high. Should the team succeed, millions of people each year will be saved. There's even a personal component for one of the characters where Bennett's mother died from coronary disease, which is why the actions taken later in the film and the previous scene make no sense. Why not have Krebs bring up her mom? This would feel slimy to the audience, but then you would have Bennett accept his offer, which would make her look good. Later on, we learn that she also missed her own mom's funeral, and it would have been so easy for the writers just to give Bennett a guilty complex driving her in her actions for not being there for her mom. I just don't understand. Was this movie the first draft or something? Because I feel like these issues are obvious, and somehow the writers missed this. This was just like an easy layup, just to...
Is crucial, we just can't get it to trial. We're unable to synthesize the DNA, so we need samples from living dinosaurs.
And the species must be a true colossus.
The lab requires DNA samples from 3 specific living colossal dinosaurs: Mosasaurus, Titanosaurus, and Quetzalcoatlus. This is a very small, very little nitpick, very minor. Mosasaurus was not technically a dinosaur, but is considered a species of reptile. You could think like a very large snake or lizard. Titanosaurus is not actually a recognized genus, but a placeholder for fossils considered too vague to be classified into other groups. And the third one is also not a dinosaur, but a pterosaur. Think flying reptile. The science in this movie is a mess, especially when you add mutated DNA in cross species, so that's going to be set aside for larger problems. But given Dr. Loomis over here is supposed to be a very enthusiastic paleontologist, the fact he doesn't articulate these differences, except for mentioning the third one, shows a level of apathy from the writers and their lack of care for the scientific part of sci-fi horror. It's a shame too, because establishing these differences will provide a more solid reason why Parker Gen X requires all 3 samples from each animal, as they have vastly different DNA structures, but alas, that would require the writers to think more than 2 seconds.
I can guarantee your safety. I mean, you know, more or less.
Oh, no, it's not about my safety. It's more or less.
Yeah.
What you're proposing is really illegal.
Did you tell him about the zeros?
That's not gonna work.
What are you talking about?
The scene continues as Krebs and Bennett convince Dr. Loomis to join them on the expedition. He is worried about the legality issues. Visiting the islands is illegal and has some fierce punishment. There is brief humor I liked, with Bennett saying she can protect him more or less, and then Dr. Loomis takes a second to think, eating some breath mints.
You ready?
Yeah.
I understand the humor the writers were going for this scene. It's not personally my favorite, but I think the problem is that the writers don't fully commit to the bit, so it ends up just feeling out of place. They should have held the scene longer. They should have done a full wide shot instead of doing close-up shots when they start talking, but that's not the end of the world. Overall, the entire museum scene is fine. Once again, Bennett's character is shown as more prophet folk, which is nicely juxtaposed with Dr. Loomis's character caring about dinosaurs and their legacy more than the money, and Martin Krebs is a good example of being in the middle, showing both moral obligation and excitement for potential financial gain. On my first watch of the movie, I had hope. We have a solid reason for visiting the islands. We have the morally gray Martin Krebs, the cold, morbidly humorous mercenary Bennett, and the head in the clouds, kind-hearted Dr. Loomis, who will soon be out of his depths. The main hurdle is collecting DNA from 3 deadly, massive dinosaurs. This creates an interesting balance between action, military flick, and a horror movie, and with the addition of characters like Dr. Loomis, who will probably be against killing dinosaurs, and Bennett, who will have no problem killing a dinosaur, things were looking up. And the next scene had me even more excited.
Here, but maybe you could double the number that you and I spoke about, and then I could take care of Duncan and his crew out of my end.
Oh, I see. That's very nice. You guys cooked this up on the phone or just now?
I'm just trying to help you out.
Here, we are introduced to Duncan Kincaid and Bobby Atwater, other mercenaries for hire. Kincaid plays a little trick on Krebs, pretending he won't risk his boat to extort more money from him. Krebs agrees, despite understanding the game, and the movie cuts to the main ship.
So when we leave it?
I was disappointed by the number of people on the ship. Less bodies means less deaths, but Jurassic Park technically only had 5 on-screen deaths, and they were impactful, prioritizing character development and atmosphere over gore, so my hopes were still holding on. We watched them playing around, locating and retrieving the sample from the first dino, the Mosasaurus, including learning more redundant information the captions told us in the beginning.
Why near the equator? Why don't they survive anywhere else?
The fitness landscape of the Earth no longer suits them. The air is different. The solar radiation is different, the insects, vegetation, everything is different.
I feel like I've already said this a dozen times, but I'm gonna say it again. Remove the captions. Let the audience learn naturally from the movie. The writers ended up wasting the addition of a paleontologist. When you have the smart character in a movie, let the smart character tell the audience. Why would you tell us in the beginning with a subtitle something you were already planning on telling us later? Krebs explains the history of the island. An R&D for engine, or research and development lab, was abandoned following an accident. The reason the opening scene should not have stayed 17 years earlier, given any time frame or even a location. Without that additional information, audiences would put together 2 and 2 and realize, oh, that opening scene was the accident. And if the dinosaur had not been spoiled 4 minutes in, audiences could be allowed room for speculation. We are shown the weapon the team will use to collect blood samples. The darts will collect the sample, but the animals have thick hides. I like this. With the thick hides, it creates a rule that the characters must be within a certain range, adding another level of complexity. It is a solid and good plot device.
Actually missed my own mother's funeral.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's terrible, Zora.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, seriously, that's like the worst thing I've ever heard anybody do.
Please tell me you worked it out with Amelia.
Yeah. Whenever we looked at each other, we just saw our little boy.
Moving onward, Kincaid and Bennett have a brief conversation. Kincaid gives his condolences for the passing of Bennett's friend during another job. Just my opinion, this piece of the plot, Bennett having lost a friend, unneeded. Solely because we soon learn she missed her own mother's funeral. And that is frankly more interesting and more compelling for why a person should change instead of generic dead friend. Rebirth has 2 competing sob stories for Bennett. Missing her own mom's funeral and a dead friend, and it feels like they should have just picked one and stuck with that lane, but that's just my opinion, it's not a huge deal. Kincaid has broken things with his wife. Apparently their relationship began dissolving after the loss of their son. Kincaid is probably the one likable character in this movie. Bennett and Dr. Loomis come across hypocritical at best, while Martin Krebs is a character that's just sort of there. But Kincaid has a firm, compelling backstory. A man dealing with the loss of his son and the dissolution of his marriage, a man that holds to morals while still being in a shady line of work. Scarlett Johansson's character Bennett and Kincaid should have switched places. Bennett, whether by writing or interesting acting ability, feels like a side character. She feels like an attractive mercenary side character. She feels like Black Widow. It is a rough watch, actually. Kincaid, on the other hand, feels like a main character. He seems the de facto leader of the group, he makes the final calls, and the actor elevates an average script, making me want to root for his character. Kincaid is the person pushing Bennett to be better, to not spend her life chasing money, not because money is inherently bad, but that in her pursuit of wealth, she has pushed the people around her to the sidelines.
We took a vow in summertime, now we find ourselves in late December.
Rationing those, honey?
I'm enjoying them.
This is our first introduction to the B plot of the movie, and wow, it is something else. Before you are subjected to the slowest, most inconsequential, boring characters in the Jurassic World franchise, let me declare that the Delgado family should not exist. None of them will die in this movie. None of them have close calls in this movie that feel believable because the writers refuse to let them die. It's milquetoast, lukewarm, seasoned solely with salt, and my tears level of writing that turned a 2-hour movie into one of the worst experiences of my life. The Delgado family will not be dignified with names. There's Dad of the Year, Annoying Daughter, Little Girl, and Weed Boyfriend. Dad of the Year cannot stand Weed Boyfriend. Weed Boyfriend is shown as stupid, lazy, lacking social awareness, and yet he's the only character amongst that group that I kind of get along with. Annoying Teenager has 0 likable qualities, bringing along Weed Boyfriend despite Dad of the Year wanting a family trip, and Little Girl is solely there so they can have a cute little side character they could sell as a plushie later on. Dad of the Year must hate his family, because he took a shortcut near the islands and has the nerve to be surprised their ship is attacked. The boat is flipped and the family ends up stranded. Despite my earlier claims we wouldn't be discussing camera work, we need to discuss the camera work. The camera work in this scene is awful.
Left, left, left.
How many cuts was that? Why would they cut it like that? That did not make the scene intense, it sucked the tension right out of it. All 4 members of the Delgado group survive, with Weed boyfriend out swimming a predator of the ocean, but then they're stuck on the float-over boat. In my opinion, all 4 of them should have drowned or been eaten, and it would make the movie so much better. It's nighttime. We get maybe 10 seconds of crew bonding. I wish we saw more of this girl and guy because their dynamic seems super sweet and the French aspect was really interesting, but nope, that would be fun to watch. Instead, Scarlett Johansson has a character with Dr. Loomis. I don't know why I keep forcing the name Bennett when I can only see her as Black Widow, so that's her name now. Black Widow claims she's not a mercenary. She works in situational security and reaction, so a bodyguard or a mercenary. This actually pissed me off so much, I went down a really weird rabbit hole of the differences between bodyguard and mercenary, and from what I've seen, the main distinction is like defensive versus offensive, and Black Widow takes offensive position in many scenes in this movie, actively getting the DNA samples from the dinosaurs, so Black Widow is a mercenary.
Maybe a little PTSD. I probably should have taken some more time off after my last job.
What are you?
The writing in this scene, the CGI in this scene. The scene is bad. The writers really have no faith that the audience can understand subtext. Why does she say PTSD? This whole thing is meant as a bonding scene, but there's no bonding. The conversation repeats things we already know, so I just don't understand why it exists. Why not have them discuss something more personal? I don't know, like Dr. Loomis explaining where his love for dinosaurs came from. Maybe a childhood story about him and his dad bonding over paleontology before his dad passes away from cancer, or to fit in the theme with the movie, a coronary disease. Then you can have Black Widow's character express through her body language that she sympathizes with him because of her mother's recent death, or focus on the surrounding characters so when they die, it's impactful and doesn't feel like cannon fodder.
Ouais. Charlie, je vais faire pipi, okay? Elsie?
No French before breakfast.
Dawn arrives, and the team receives a mayday over the ship radio. Kincaid and Black Widow are on the side of arguing to respond to the call, which is confusing because this is the first bit of altruism we actually see from her character. Nothing prior has established that she has a reverence for life. Hot blonde guy, forgot his name, I don't feel like checking, is the first person to suggest not responding. His argument is that other fishermen or ships in the area will respond and that their own ship is fairly away. This is a confusing choice of dialogue. The writers want the audience to view Krebs as a bad guy by this point. It would have made more sense for him to be the first person to suggest this. I think the reason they did this is so that when writers kill Hot Blonde Guy, you're not supposed to care as much. Or perhaps they're trying to keep it family friendly where only the bad guy dies. I'm not super sure what their reasoning was. Krebs does end up agreeing with Hot Blonde Guy, but it feels lukewarm at best. It doesn't feel like he's super insistent on it. It just feels like, this is my opinion, this is what I agree on. Kincaid makes the final decision. He tells Leclerc, the man we saw previously, to set a new course in response to the Mayday. Again, why is Kincaid not the main character? I am baffled by that decision.
Hey!
Oh my god!
Hey! Hey!
Hey, over here!
Over here!
I don't know. It was like the size of the boat.
Bigger.
Sadly, the Delgado clan is saved. The team asks them questions about the dinosaur that attacked them, and we discover that it was the Mosasaurus. Kincaid gets into a heated discussion with Dad of the Year, berating the man for taking his kids out here, while Dad of the Year's only argument is 50,000 other ships do the same thing all the time. 1 in 50,000 is good odds, but do you know what better odds are? Taking the long way and completely eliminating the risk of your children being eaten alive. Dad of the Year really living up to his title. Also, small nitpick again, I know, hear me out. Delgado clan is super ungrateful being fished out of the water, provided towels, warm food, and fresh water. They almost immediately jump into demanding what the team is doing out here, like they weren't also breaking the law.
Duncan, let it go, okay? You know you're not pissed off at him.
This is the first hint of subtle writing, and I like it. Black Widow is referring to Kincaid's recent loss, making him feel more overprotective of children in general. Delgado clan asks questions about why their ship is out here, and Weed boyfriend remarks that Martin Krebs is creeping him out. Here is the exact context for asking him that question.
Talking about...
Hey, that guy?
Hey, excuse me.
Creeping me out. What'd I do? You creeped me out.
Krebs justifiably responds, "What did I do?" Another example of the writers telling us how we should feel about a character, yet not providing a shred of evidence to support those feelings. We should feel that Krebs is a creep because the writers want us to feel that Krebs is a creep. The Mosasaurus that attacked the Delgado clan and sadly didn't kill them has returned, and the team scrambles to prepare. After a not terrible chase sequence, with the boat having to get close enough for the dart to pierce the hide, the blood sample is successfully collected. The chase sequence is unfortunately brought down a few stars by constant cutting back to the Delgado clan, who are boring and useless and whimper inside the cabin the entire time. They were not needed for this part of the movie. They weren't needed at all, but that is a whole other conversation. After the chase sequence, Dr. Loomis is suggesting to Scarlett Johansson that they keep the sample. Mind you, he has known this woman for less than a week. Maybe at that. And I'm sorry, I must have misheard, but it's not the sample alone that is the direct cure to coronary diseases. Parker Gen X has been working on a drug that requires the DNA to complete their work, but the drug itself is not straight dino heart blood. Parker Gen X must have also submitted patents at this stage in development, and releasing a medical drug onto the market is no simple task. There is strict legislation and laws in place, including the requirement of intensive trials and massive hurdles to pass through. So my question is, what exactly is Dr. Loomis's plan? For them to recreate this drug, that would require them stealing research documents related to the drug from Parker Gen X. And then what? Bring that research in the blood sample to a competitor to synthesize the drug, who would also probably attempt to monopolize control over it? Does Dr. Loomis have a functioning lab in his backyard with scientists willing to break numerous federal laws? And would that not mean the drug takes longer to reach the market so more people will die in the process? I understand his point about pharmaceutical companies and medicine as a whole. Healthcare is absolutely profit-focused rather than people-focused. I have had way too much personal experience with that, but his concern is a legislative issue. Should Dr. Loomis feel that strongly about this injustice, he should run for a political position on the grounds of advocating for better healthcare. He could utilize his involvement with Parker Gen X, helping them create basically a miracle drug for these types of diseases, as the foundation for his political career. But by stealing the DNA samples, not the rest of the research, all Dr. Loomis does is nuke the drug in its entirety and makes it so that no one gets it. The scene is silly, and it adds nothing but an unnecessary side plot to a movie that had a fairly straightforward and interesting concept. Why must Parker Gen X and Martin Krebs be an additional antagonist in a movie with massive mutated dinosaurs? Why are the dinosaurs not enough for the writers? The writers might be trying to include a concept that people can relate to about how some groups struggle to find proper care in modern healthcare. But when I'm watching a horror movie about dinosaurs, I want to escape into that movie, not be reminded about real-world issues I actively struggle with. It just makes me mad at the writers, because it feels like they're trying to score easy brownie points, and it just comes off as condescending and also highly uninformed.
Those things from the boat. They're back.
Spinosaurus begin circling the boat. Hot blonde guy shoots at them. Proper response in my opinion, given the Spinosauruses want to eat them, and my hope goes up for a moment. Maybe this is going to be a Man vs. Beast movie. Everyone pulls out the guns. Everyone shoots the dinosaurs. But then, my hopes plummet to the ground with the most insanely stupid line I think in the entire movie.
These are all wars now.
Lines like this really only work in certain pieces and types of media. Helldivers 2 has plenty of these voice lines, and I love every single one of them. The main difference is one can either be a fun line relating to the core fantasy about dying for something greater than oneself, or it's a satirical line that comes across comedic. But Rebirth's usage of a line is done in context of a world and movie that is not a part of that core fantasy, and is not satirical. It is clearly meant to make us dislike this guy. It's the writer's easy cop-out. Like, look, he said this line. Dislike him, he deserves to die. I'm fine. This is fine. I'm just witnessing the rotting corpse of a beloved franchise being passed around like a blunt. Look out! Hot blonde guy gets killed in such a boring way. The movement is slow and inaccurate to the behavior of an aquatic-based reptile. Take this example from an amazing animal horror movie, Rogue. If you haven't seen this movie, pause here, go watch it. It is one of the best animal attack movies out there. Rogue does an excellent job of lifting the main antagonist, a giant crocodile, simply by letting it be an animal. The crocodile is protecting its territory, a natural instinct. But that instinct results in the loss of human life, and it's horrifying because you can't reason with that. Here is one of my favorite clips from Rogue.
Come on! Hey, shush! Come on!
I can hear something.
What channel is it?
Standing ovation. Absolute cinema. The group arguing, Everett attempting to keep one of the group members from entering the water, only to be taken out of our sight, leaving behind nothing but rippling water. Another mistake animal and monster movies make is that big equals slow. Compare a fly to a human. To flies, we move pretty slow, but our difference in size is ginormous. Better compared to a bear and a fish. Ask the fish. The bear might be large, but it's still threatening and swift. Rogue captures the true threat of a massive crocodile. It's fast, it's smart, especially for a water-bound animal. Speed is essential for catching smaller prey. The crocodile manages to drag a person away without Everett even having the chance to scream. Additionally, another important factor for a predator is jaw strength or bite force. The force behind a crocodile's jaw correlates with body mass. The bigger the crocodile, the easier to bite down, break bones, or simply snap the person in half. I would think this also applies to dinosaurs. For something the size of the Spinosaurus, the bite force would be overwhelming. Instead, it's like the animal has zero muscles in the jaw. Slowing down the kill, the Spinosaurus appears to struggle in getting a solid grip. Rebirth should have shown it biting straight down and hooking teeth into Hot Blonde Guy's torso. Hot Blonde Guy should not have been able to hold onto the doorframe. He should be flopping around the ship's deck, legs and upper torso taken by the Spinosaurus, him being cleaved in two by an overwhelming bite force. Compare Rebirth's jaw hold to Rogue's.
I'm sorry.
Spoiler alert for Rogue, big spoiler alert, this woman survives, but not without significant damage to her torso, and the only reason she survives is because the crocodile wants her to, and yes, some plot armor. The crocodile purposely injures her and takes the woman back to his underground nest as future food. Rebirth gives us no reasoning why the Spinosaurus does not chomp Hot Blonde Guy in half, other than the writers wanting a movie safe for younger children. Who in their right mind would take a horror IP appealing to older teens and adults and decide we are making this for little kids? But that's the only reason I can come up with for the lack of brutality in this film other than incompetence. Scratch that. Krebs dies in a fairly gruesome way later on, so that logic makes no sense. Incompetence. It's just incompetence. There's a silly close call displaying the writer's inability to kill off any Delgado clan members, and Dad of the Year ends up breaking a bone, bringing us to the most brain-dead scene in the whole movie. Dad of the Year tells annoying daughter to go call for help. Krebs tries to stop her because being in these waters is illegal and they could all go to prison for life. Neither annoying daughter nor Martin Krebs are in the wrong. Well, you might ask, how can two people be right yet be on opposite sides of the fence? It is simply a case of differing information and viewpoints. Annoying daughter is scared, desperate, and listening to her dad. While I think calling for help is kinda stupid, annoying daughter has justified reasons for her actions, and I can see her thinking, if this boat flips too, we'll need rescuing. Martin Krebs is also right about stopping her. From his viewpoint and his knowledge, help won't be arriving for a long time. It took an entire night for the Delgado family to be rescued. Secondly, should help even arrive, they are going to have the artillery to fend off the Spinosauruses. It will probably be another small fishing boat that would practically be leading another land to slaughter. Any help will be after the creatures have left, meaning whoever picks them up will probably contact authorities, and then most of them will be facing prison time. Their best chances at surviving without ending up behind bars is fending for themselves.
Hey, no! Hey! Back off!
There. Right there. Replay.
Back off!
Play it again. Slow it down.
Back off!
As the two struggle over the radio, annoying daughter pushes Krebs. Let me repeat. Annoying daughter pushes Martin Krebs, not the other way around. This is a message for that one specific person. You know who, as seen with my blatant evidence, Krebs is clearly the one pushed, not the one pushing. Annoying daughter falls backwards as a result of her own actions in a tipping boat. Annoying daughter begs for help, but falls. The writers want audiences to believe this is Krebs murdering annoying daughter, which is insane. Choosing not to help someone is not murder. It makes you a bit of a coward and pathetic, but no one knows how they will react in an emergency situation. The nicest and kindest people I've known have absolutely frozen during an emergency. Let's pretend you escaped from a burning apartment building. You notice someone trapped inside and crying for help. Most people freeze. In the time it takes for their brains to analyze the situation and reach a conclusion, it's too late. It happens. The reason being a hero is so widely praised and looked up to is because saving the day is unordinary. Being brave is not the common response. Also, we see that Krebs is disoriented. Although audiences are not shown the fall, it sounds pretty hard, and the acting makes it appear that he hit his head. Krebs does make a weird face, but that does not equate to wanting annoying daughter dead. He's probably debating his own odds of survival. Minutes prior, the movie showed us that anyone leaving the main cabin is attacked. Me personally, if I was really honest, I'm not risking my own life for saving someone I don't know. And most people, should they be honest, would do the exact same thing. But let us play into the writer's bizarre fantasy. For some reason, Krebs wants annoying daughter dead. This scenario is still not murder. In the United States, under most common law jurisdictions, civilians are under no legal obligation to help someone in distress. Generally, the people that do get a charge, like criminal negligence or manslaughter, are people that have taken an oath to help, like police officers, paramedics, or doctors, or someone with a recognized legal duty, like a parent. That's why if a baby drowns in a public pool, the parent is charged with criminal negligence. If a bystander watched that baby drown, they would get no charges because they have no legal duty. Might make them a monster for watching a baby drown, but what if they can't swim and they don't want to risk their own life? The argument for more obligation could be made, but letting an annoying daughter fall is not murder. It's cowardice. And being afraid of dying and not helping doesn't make you inherently evil. You know who? You're wrong. Krebs is not evil. He is just a guy. You had the audacity to claim Krebs pushed her, and clearly, thou art wrong. I'm wondering if you even watched this movie or were you on your phone, and we both know the answer to that one already. Yes, I'm aware it has been a year. I'm also aware that holding this weird grudge for over 12 months is borderline psychopathic. But I have not forgotten, and I have not forgiven. You have been proven wrong, I have been proven right, now I can finally move on, let it go, and discuss the rest of this terrible movie. The next following scene. As I was working on this video and after some reflection, I realized this video was getting absurdly long. So I decided to split the video into two for easier viewing. The second part will be going up in a couple of days. Thank you so much for watching, my freaky freaks, and remember,
I'll think of you when I'm not here. 'Cause thinking of people makes them seem near. The friends who know you, love you cheerfully. I do too.